Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the business meeting of the Portland Board of Public Education to order. It is Tuesday, May 4th, 2021, and the Portland Board of Public Education is meeting virtually via Zoom. May I please ask the superintendent to call the roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Bondo.
Présente.
Mr. Burke.
Here.
Mr. Irish.
Here.
Senor Rodriguez.
Presente.
Ora Russell Better.
Here.
I'm sorry, Miss Russell Better.
Here.
Apologize for that. Ms. Thompson.
Here.
Ms. Trevorrow. Mr. Youssef.
Here.
Miss Allen. Miss Boxer McCumber.
Here.
Miss Chung.
Here.
Miss Hill. Miss Yangala.
Yes, I'm here.
And Chair Figdor.
Here. And Ms. Trevorrow did tell me prior to the meeting that she is unable to make it tonight. So with that, it's time for the Pledge of Allegiance. And once we see the flag, would everyone please unmute yourselves and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
For which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Not bad.
You might have low standards on that, Mr. Superintendent.
Well, we got better as we went along, so.
Okay, so we are going to start our meeting, as is now our always what we do, with public comment on items that are not on the agenda for the night. And when I say that, I mean specifically items that we're not going to vote on. So if you're a member of the public and you want to address the board, use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. That can be found either next to your participant name or on the bottom of the Zoom panel. And I do see we have a hand up. And I'm gonna just go quickly through the rules or how the procedures we use. And so when I call on you, I'll use your Zoom name, and please start by stating your name and your address, and then you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. And I see the Zoom name is, for the first person to speak with us tonight, is Lime TV. So let's see. You can go ahead, Lime TV.
Hello, thank you for having us. My name is Adina Berkowitz, and I am the founder and executive director of Lime TV. I am currently sitting next to our director of science, who is attending as well this evening. We are an all-volunteer 501c3 public health nonprofit based in Portland, and our mission is to prevent dangerous tick-borne diseases. We present free health education to schools throughout Maine, as well as outside of Maine through remote lessons. And currently we are providing free tick health education in 9 counties in Maine to schools. So we are here tonight to present to you to let you know that we are a resource for your community. We have recently expanded our health education program to include an animation that was written by Disney screenwriters. If you go to tickjedi.com, that is the website for our program. And it is an interactive cartoon where kids get to choose their own path in the story. And it is free for all schools. And I'm just here to let you know about the program and see if we can somehow partner together to get the program into the schools for vital tick health education information in Maine. Currently, Maine has the highest incidence of Lyme disease in the United States. There are other prevalent tick-borne diseases here as well, and kids 5 to 14 are the highest demographic risk group for tick-borne diseases across the nation. So that is one of the reasons why we focus on school health education.
Thank you so much, Adina.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other hands, I am going to close public comment. And next is the report of the chair. And tonight, I first wanted to just appreciate all of our educators across the district. This is Teacher Appreciation Week. And I thought that Commissioner Pender-Macon really hit the nail on the head when she said that this year entails a whole new level of gratitude, given all that educators have done, from the creativity to the gumption to the sticking with it day in and day out to educate our students throughout the pandemic. So want to just express my deep felt gratitude to all of our educators. I know Teacher Appreciation is something I look forward to as a parent. Oops, sorry. I forgot to turn my public comment stopwatch off, so I apologize for that. But I know as a parent, Teacher Appreciation Week is always something I look forward to as a small way to let the educators in the schools my kids go to give them a sense of how deeply grateful I am and the community is for all they do. And then the other thing I wanted to just talk about briefly tonight is just to say how heartening it has been to see the board and the administration and the community come together to move our budget forward. And it's felt like a real team effort. And I feel like there's so much acknowledgement and recognition and understanding in what we're trying to do and why, with our focus on equity, and that people are working so hard to make it happen. And so just wanted to say thank you to each and every one of you. I feel very lucky to be able to work with you and move our equity agenda forward. So thank you so much. And I look forward to getting this budget passed by the council and then in front of the voters, passed by the voters, and to then move it forward. So thank you to all. And next we have the report of the students. And tonight we get to hear from Emily Chung of Deering High School. So Emily, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Victor. Hello, school board members and Portland Schools community. To start my report, as a member of the school board and representative of DHS, I'd like to give thanks to the Portland Public Schools staff and administration for working tirelessly the last couple of months to pull off the increase of in-person learning for our students. At Deering, students have been coming in twice a week, enjoying lunches outside, alongside built-in time for community building during our advisory block. Coupled with this effort to provide normalcy for students, the school nurse at Deering, Elizabeth Nally, has been working to promote COVID vaccinations for eligible students. She and her counterparts at the other high schools have been working with Greater Portland Health to schedule some students for local COVID vaccination clinics. They are also working to educate students about the COVID vaccination and to dismantle false information about the vaccine. The high school multilingual health assistant went to several ELL classes before spring break and provided education about the COVID vaccine to students in English, Portuguese, French, and Lingala. Speaking of some school-wide news, Deering is also excited to announce the selection of our new assistant principal for the coming school year. After an extensive selection process in which more than 17 Deering staff members and students were involved, Dr. Jake Giesman has been selected as the next assistant principal at Deering High School, pending the school board approval. Dr. Giesman was an assistant principal at Lyman Moore Middle School, and currently he is the remote academy principal. We are very excited to welcome Dr. Giesman to our Deering family. For some student-related updates, the Student Senate is currently putting together a Mother's Day plant fundraiser on May 6th and 7th. We're also planning some type of field day / spirit day celebration to raise spirits during this often stressful time for students, given finals and AP exams approaching. On Thursday, May 29th, Deering held a virtual convocation for new members of the National Honor Society. We welcomed 24 new members from the junior class and formally recognized the members of the senior class who did not have a convocation the previous year. At the event, our co-principals, Dr. Ahmed and Mrs. Dane, honored a handful of juniors with Collegiate Book Awards. Next, I would like to congratulate the Deering students who participated and distinguished themselves in JMG's virtual career development conference. Deering placed first in team decision-making competition, and Emmanuel Sally placed first in the public speaking competition. Congratulations to our Deering students. Now I'll give a warm congratulations to 9 Deering athletes who are recognized by their sports teams and coaches for their great work during the winter sports season. Congratulations to Empore Semihoza, John Garrett, Allison Holt, Megan Willie, Remy Giovanni, Laura Jin, Anthony O'Donnell, and Aaliyah Ferreira. Congratulations to you all. Lastly, I'd like to give everyone an update on Deering's graduation. The 147th Deering High School graduation ceremony will be held on Wednesday, June 2nd at 11 a.m. We are delighted to inform you that the ceremony will take place outside on our own memorial field, which allows us to honor seniors and to welcome their families to our campus. The rain date will be Friday, June 4th at the same time. For people who are unable to attend the event in person, we hope you'll join us during the online live stream of the event. And this now concludes my third board report for Deering High School. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chung. Excellent report. It's very informative and covered so many different aspects of what's happening in at Deering. Thank you. With that, we move to the report of the superintendent. Superintendent Batana.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I believe, Ms. Chung, that you should be recognized as one of those National Honor Society inductees, if I recall correctly from looking at that list. So congratulations to you and your classmates on that. Portland Public Schools recognizes the original inhabitants of the land on which our city and schools stand. The Wolastoqey, Micmac, Penobscot, and Passamaquoddy tribes known collectively as the Wabanaki Confederacy, or people of the Dawnland. We're honored to have Wabanaki children among our students today, and the district is committed to making the past, present, and future of Wabanaki peoples visible in our schools and classrooms. May is Asian American and Pacific Islander Month, a particularly important opportunity to affirm our commitment to addressing the historical inequities that the AAPI community has experienced in our schools and the larger society. This week, as you heard earlier, we recognize the contributions of our teachers and school staff as part of Teacher Appreciation Week. I'm grateful for the selfless contributions of all of our educators, particularly in this challenging school year. I know that our parent-teacher organizations have been generously recognizing their work this week in many amazing ways, and I can't think of a more deserving group of people than our amazing Portland Public Schools teachers. Tonight, I would like to introduce Joel Thoitz as our new Director of Transportation. Joel has worked at PPS for the past 8 years as a bus driver and most recently as operations manager for our transportation department. And Joel was selected from a competitive field of applicants based primarily on his deep understanding of the department's work and his long-term commitment of the district, as well as his commitment to elevating the work of our transportation department. Joel is here tonight so that you can put a face with that name. So Joel, do you want to wave? And if you would like to say something, this is your chance.
Thank you very much, Javier. Good evening, everyone. I'm very privileged to be serving the community that I grew up in, and I have some big shoes to fill. Eric has moved on, who was our former transportation director, and I was very grateful to work under Eric, and I'm really looking forward to help serving this community. I think we can do some great things and help continue on the path that Eric had started for our department. And I would like to thank all of you for bringing me aboard.
Awesome. Thank you, Joel. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Eric Wood, our outgoing director. Eric, as you heard, has done an amazing job leading the department for the past 2 years. And he leaves us to move back to his home in the Midwest, but will be overlapping with Joel through the end of this month to help with the transition And of course, we wish Eric the best in all of his future endeavors. As you heard earlier, we are now approaching graduation season. So you heard from Ms. Chung that during high school's 147th commencement will be on June 2nd at Memorial Field. There is a rain date of Friday, June 4th. Portland High School's graduation is scheduled for June 3rd at Fitzgerald Field at Fitzy. And the time at this point is still being worked out. And finally, Casco Bay High School will graduate also on June 3rd, and they're scheduled to graduate at Merrill Auditorium. This will be the 200th graduation for Portland High School. And let me just say that, pause, and let it sink in. The 200th graduation. From my first graduation here in Portland, I've been in awe of the significance of that. 200 continuous years of graduating classes in this community. I will note that the school staff and administration desperately wanted to be able to hold the graduation at Merrill in keeping with their time-honored tradition. However, because of the audience size limitations of the venue, it became impossible to pull off that scheduling. We appreciate everyone's patience as this was being worked out. Last year's drive-in graduation proved to us that it's the celebration and the students that make the event and not the venue, and I'm confident that we will repeat that experience this year. I would like to thank the City of Portland for their flexibility and their partnership in making these flexible arrangements possible. I also want to let you know that Ocean Avenue Custodian of the Year candidate Donna Colello did not win the competition despite a strong showing. I would like to thank everyone who voted for Donna. She's without a doubt a winner, and we know that based on merits, she is hands down the Custodian of the Year in our book. Later tonight, we will be asking you to approve the contract with Blaine Casey for renovations at Longfellow School under the Buildings for Our Future bond. Work continues to ensure that we're able to break ground on all three of the remaining schools this summer. Just this past week, we had a successful workshop on the Reiki and Presumpscot projects with the planning board, and planning board public hearings for both the Presumpscot and Reiki projects are scheduled for next week, May 11th. The Reiki bids were released last week, and they are due in by the end of May. We also worked with city staff to schedule and organize around the issuance of the Presumpscot bid. And because of some of the delays that we've experienced in the Longfellow and Reiki bid process, we're working hard to be able to meet the deadline to get an approved contract before the board prior to your adjournment at the end of June. I'm also pleased to announce that we've entered into a partnership with the Laborers Union, and that they will be launching a class at Paths this summer to introduce community members to the requirements for entering the workforce as laborers, including granting some key certifications. This is an exciting start to what we hope will be a strong, ongoing partnership as we work to implement the apprenticeship requirements that are part of the Green New Deal ordinance. I would like to thank Jason Shedlock and the Laborers International Union of North America, the New England chapter, and their Training Trust Fund for their commitment to helping our students and community members gain access to important skills and competencies that will help them to find good jobs, helping to rebuild our schools and city. I would also like to thank Kevin Stilfen, Director of the Portland Arts and Technology High School, and Anita St. Ange, Director of Portland Adult Ed, for their continued efforts on this front. Next, I would like to thank the Portland Museum of Art, and specifically Learning and Teaching Specialist Megan Quinley, and our very own Portland High School teacher, Pierre-Louis LaChapelle, for their collaborative work. As part of the PMA's new exhibition entitled Untitled 2020, Art from Maine in a Blank Time, students at PHS have been collaborating with the Artists Rapid Response Team to bring youth voice to this exhibition. Each week, the artists of art connect with Louis' advanced students and provide them feedback and comments on the art that they have underway. Students are inspired by these conversations and are very engaged in their role in this work. The PPS PMA partnerships were established as a way to connect with educators and students in the district on a deeper level. And these partnerships work with individual educators to collaboratively build opportunities for free choice, student-driven learning. These partnerships within the district helped inform ways that the museum can expand capacity for more direct collaboration with educators across the state. As always, we're grateful to the PMA for their engagement and collaboration with our educators. I also encourage everyone to attend the PMA's new exhibition. And finally, I look forward to showcasing some of the work that Mr. LaChapelle's students are developing later this spring. Now we'll move to our school reopening update. Today's school reopening update continues our practice of bringing updates to the school board on developments in our school reopening plan. As many of you know, our 10th through 12th grade students returned to our high schools for 2 days a week of in-person instruction earlier this month. Last week, we were happy to be able to welcome our students in grades pre-K through 8 back to school for 4 days of in-person instruction weekly. As I said at our last meeting, this was a tremendous feat of planning that involved everyone across the district. And last week was a great success that can be directly attributed to the deep commitment and dedication of our school-based staff, and especially our teachers, ed techs, and school leaders. Their warmth, caring, and passion to be around students came through in every interaction last week. I can tell you that it was easy to see the smiles on the faces of our students, and that was in spite of their being really good about wearing their masks. We are hopeful that with everyone's continued vigilance and support, we will be able to stay the course through the end of this school year. We see these next 6 weeks as important learning opportunities as we look ahead to bringing students back to 5 days of in-person instruction next year. We're engaging with our school leaders and their leadership teams to gather learning from these weeks and bring those lessons into our design work for next year. We look forward to activating all of our planning groups as we do that work. I would also like to join superintendents from across the state in urging that the Maine Department of Education and Centers for Disease Control act quickly to provide the guidance needed to be able to plan effectively for next fall. We all realize that the pandemic has been nothing but a series of new lessons and changes, but as our understanding of what has worked in Maine schools and others across the country has evolved, I believe that there are ways to provide the necessary guidance now that will allow us to open our schools safely and serve all of our students in person. As you may know, Maine DOE and CDC revised their guidelines last week around masking outdoors. We have decided to retain the requirement that students and staff mask while on school grounds, even when outside, other than when they are eating. And of course, that requires that they maintain the 6 feet physical distancing requirement. We have, however, adopted the MPA, the Maine Principals Association guidelines for masking and spectators for spring sports. And under those guidelines, just as a rule of thumb, we are largely returning to the rules that were in place for our fall sports early in the season. I am pleased to announce that the existing National School Lunch Program waivers that were in place last spring were extended through this entire next school year. We welcome the opportunity to continue to be able to feed all of our students with minimal restrictions through the 21-22 school year. I'm also thrilled that the Maine DOE is working with the Department of Health and Human Services in the development of a pandemic EBT plan to provide expanded SNAP food benefit access to Maine children. Maine's plan has been approved by the USDA recently, and we in Portland are doing our part to assist in ensuring that Maine children and adolescents who qualify can receive these benefits. Under these benefits, children and adolescents who qualify may receive up to $1,100, almost $1,200 in pandemic food assistance for the school year. Once the OE is set up, eligible children, including those who qualify for free and reduced priced meal benefits under the National School Lunch Program will be able to complete applications at any time during the year. We will continue to monitor this benefit and make sure that all of our eligible families are supported in attaining it. Portland Adult Ed has received permission to organize a pop-up vaccination clinic, which is tentatively scheduled for, I believe, late next week, as part of their efforts to work with the community to increase access to vaccines for underserved communities. This morning, also, several of our high school students, and you heard Ms. Chung refer to the efforts that our high schools are doing to put out the good word about vaccines. Several of our high school students held a media availability to explain why they have chosen to be vaccinated and do their part to help communicate to their peers the importance of getting the vaccine. As I said earlier, we remain concerned about the COVID cases in our area. We will continue to lead with evidence and are committed to keeping our students and staff safe. I cannot stress enough how important it is for everyone to continue to enforce and abide by our health and safety measures, including self-monitoring and not coming to work or school if showing any symptoms, masking, and physical distancing. Only by continuing our vigilance and commitment to keeping each other safe will we be able to keep our students learning in person this spring and into the next school year. And that concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Mr. Superintendent. I see Ms. Bondo has her hand up. Ms. Bondo, do you have a question or a comment for the superintendent?
I have both.
Excellent. Go ahead, please.
All right. For my comment, I just want to say thank you to the staff and the school leaders for the great dedication to make it happen, because I really get a lot of feedback from families. Then it was a big relief to see kids going back to school at least twice a week, especially for the high school. So thank you so much, and just let's go keep doing it. My question is about the attendance. I just want to know if it's too early to call or it's too early to know about the attendance, because this is really from my heart, the 40% of the chronic absenteeism we saw among the Latin students. So during the remote, so how did we see this? Or it's too early to get a sense, or we see a little more engagement, involvement from those students? And my sub-question is that I heard a lot of feedback, a lot of positive feedback. Did we get any challenges, anything really big concern on our returning, like, transportation, if everything went well? What really happened with the metro, as the coordination was well coordinated? Those are my questions. Thank you.
So on the attendance, as you know, that is, one of the key metrics that we will be tracking. We took a quick look at it 1 week after we started at the high school level, and there wasn't anything that, that we can report. We will be looking at it. We've built in, into our one of our administrative structure routines, looking at that. And so Mr. Goodall, our Chief Information Officer, and Mr. Townsend are working together on that to make sure that we are able to track that on a biweekly basis. And so I expect that we will be able to give you an update on that at the next board meeting. And then in terms of did anything happen during this return that is like big and serious? I know that it's gone exceptionally well, but I don't know, Aaron or any of our school leaders that are here, if there's anything that jumps out. I believe that things have been smooth with Metro. We did coordination up front, but Aaron, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, at risk of jinxing things, honestly, it has really been going super well. Joel's here, the transportation team, that was one of the huge lifts, has worked, quite smoothly thus far. We preemptively addressed like a specific route issue for Metro. The Route 9A was one that we were concerned about before the increase, and Metro has been a fabulous partner. They made adjustments on their end ahead of time. So I haven't heard any further concerns on that end. So it really, has seemed, being in the schools, that people are just really happy to be back. It's been quite successful thus far, and now we're getting back into regular school, and, we're excited about that.
All right, thank you so much. So that's it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bondo. And Mr. Superintendent, that concludes your report, right? Excellent. Okay, now we move to the report of the Secretary, consideration and action to approve the meeting minutes of April 13th, 2021. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Rodriguez, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Bondo. Are there any questions on the motion? All right, is there any public comment? And this is public comment on the minutes from our last meeting, April 13th of this year. Seeing no public comment, is there any board discussion? All right, Mr. Superintendent, will you please call the roll? By roll call vote, please indicate whether you are in favor of approving the meeting minutes from April 13th, 2021.
Ms. Bondo,
Yes.
Mr. Burke,
Yes.
Mr. Irish,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Russell Better,
Yes.
Ms. Thompson,
I'm abstaining because I was absent. Thank you.
Mr. Youssef,
Yes.
Ms. Boxer McCumber,
Yes.
Ms. Chung,
Yes.
Ms. Yangala,
Yes.
and Chair Figdor.
Yes. The motion passes unanimously with the students voting with the majority. Now we are on to consent items. Mr. Superintendent, will you please speak to this item?
Yes, Madam Chair, under board policy, excuse me. Under board policy KCD, the school board accepts by unanimous consent contributions made to the school district as required by that policy. All of the donations are listed in the board agenda under this item. Our practice is for each donor to receive a written contribution acknowledgement expressing our heartfelt gratitude as well as for their tax purposes. I would like to thank the many generous contributors to the Portland Public Schools who have made donations of durable goods, goods of substantial value and historical or commemorative significance, including musical instruments and books valued at $203.38 from Bethany Kirkpatrick, graduated cylinders for use in science classes valued at $200 from New England Cancer Specialists Research Department, funds to support food pantries at Lyseth and Reiki, a total value of $2,000 from Portland Provident, $50 gift cards from R.H. Rini Inc. and Hannaford for a raffle at a Talbot School event, and a wooden picnic table valued at $149 from Lowe's Home Improvement in Scarborough. We're very grateful for their generous support and contributions to the work of the Portland Public Schools.
Thank you so much. Excellent. Now we're moving to our board focus for the night on educational issues. And tonight we're going to hear about summer school plans.
Yes, Madam Chair, tonight we are updating you on the status of our work to provide extended learning opportunities to students this summer. As you know, the district is fortunate to have significant financial support from the federal government as part of the pandemic relief programs. One of the requirements of the recently passed American Rescue Plan is to devote a minimum of 20% of that funding to provide these types of experiences. Extended learning opportunities, including summer school, have figured in our Portland Promise plans since day one. However, we've struggled to be able to fund them at the robust level that we believe is necessary to eliminate the opportunity gaps that are aggravated in the summer, as some students have tremendous enrichment opportunities while others are less likely to access those opportunities. Last year, we were able to budget approximately $150,000 for summer extended learning opportunities in the general revenue budget. And as part of rebuilding our foundations, we're happy to be able to devote a significant amount of money to this work this year, and we expect to be able to continue this into the next two summers. Tonight, Assistant Superintendent Nally and her team will be briefing you on the plans as they exist today and the work that is going on to get these plans in place and communicated to the community. I cannot stress enough how much of a sea change this is over past efforts, as I'm sure you will see. This is extremely challenging to pull off in such a short time frame, but consistent with our commitment to learning from our efforts, we know that each and every step we take this year is helping us to better understand how to do this more effectively in coming years. So with my appreciation for their work, and especially the work of Molly Myers, who will also be a part of this presentation, I'm going to turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Nally.
Great, thank you, Superintendent. I think Assistant Superintendent Townsend's going to share his screen. Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. So our aim, there we go. Our aim this evening, as the superintendent mentioned, is to provide you all with an update on the work underway to plan for a more robust set of summer learning experience and offerings than what we've had in recent history. We're going to, as far as our agenda or approach, we're going to set a bit of context, give an overview of the programs, including hearing from a few different school and district program leaders so that you have more of a taste of the types of offerings we're planning for. And then we'll review the budget strategy and talk about our next steps. We've spent time talking about the impacts of this year in previous meetings and venues. Here we see some national data that speaks to the significant impact this year has had on students' mental health and academic achievement. And we note the disproportionate negative impacts on students from low-income backgrounds and for students of color. And we've looked at related data points here in Portland: higher chronic absenteeism, once again, disproportionately affecting students of color and students from low-income backgrounds, and higher failure rates, etc. And yet, we've also talked about the importance of how we orient to talk about and plan forward based on what we've experienced this past year. I pasted the headline from this recent article in The Atlantic that cautions us against taking a deficits-based view and approach to dealing with, quote, learning loss and triaging gaps. From the article, quote, if districts focus too much on remediating learning loss, holding kids back a grade, categorizing students according to their deficits, and centering lesson plans on catch-up work, the students who have experienced the most trauma and disconnection during the pandemic may be assigned to the lowest level and most stigmatized groups. They will be viewed as deficient, and the inequities in place before and during the pandemic will be further amplified. Children, having been told that they are behind, will internalize the story of their loss. The author goes on to say that scientific research shows that learning is impeded if students do not feel safe, seen, and valued. All parents and teachers know that if a child does not feel that she belongs within her school culture because of her identity, she likely will not thrive academically. Educators can support the social and emotional health and identities of students at the same time that they assign work that is meaningful and, most important, challenging, even above students' current level. Addressing concerns about learning loss by raising difficulty may seem counterintuitive, but with strong relationships and support, this approach can be surprisingly effective. And so our theory of action for the way we're approaching this robust summer learning program is to create varied opportunities that honor learners' immediate and long-term needs in order to ensure that all learners feel seen, challenged, and supported in a joyful environment this summer. We are striving to do that with a three-pronged strategy, offering school-based programs for every school, a set of specialized district programs, and a set of diverse camp-like offerings in partnership with community-based organizations across the greater Portland area. As we share more about how things are progressing at this point, I want to highlight some important context for situating both the opportunity and the challenge we face in pulling this off. First, we find ourselves with a set of unique and awesome opportunities at this juncture. We have sufficient resources for the first time in many, maybe ever, years to do something meaningful in terms of scale and quality. We have built and deepened our relationships with many community partners through our collaborations this year and have a natural springboard into extending those partnerships into creative programs and collaborations for the summer. And we're emerging from this grand innovation and have the benefit of being able to leverage our learning and insights from this year. At the same time, we are working to pull this off with some real constraints and barriers. First, due to how we budget for summer, we're always constrained by not knowing what level of resource investment we can expect until late winter and early spring. This makes it hard to start backwards planning earlier in the year and has many ripple effects. This challenge is compounded by the fact that our team, school and district-based, has had to hold the very real tension of managing through the most challenging year many of us have faced, during which we've had to continuously refine and redefine the way in which we do school. For context, when we got clear about the likely scope of our investment for summer, we were also right in the middle of planning for ramping up a return to more in-person learning. The task of having to plan for and be ready to implement both of those major lifts has and continues to be daunting. Related, people need a break, and yet we are trying to hire more people than ever before to work in the summer. As we'll share later, that's resulting in some very real challenges with being able to fully implement what we envision. And finally, all the complexities related to the pandemic remain. Unknowns in terms of shifting health data and the health and safety requirements that are in place that require additional planning, more resources, etc. And so with those challenges and opportunities in mind, we want to share an update on where we are with our work today. Please know that as we bring more transparency to what's being planned, this is all a work in progress, and there are many interrelated and moving parts. This is a moment in time update, and we hope it gives you a good sense of the scope and quality of offerings we are making available to our students in our community this summer. I'm going to pass it off to our Academic Supports and Transitions Coordinator, Molly Myers, who's been our leader of this work, to step you through an overview of our programs. You may recall meeting Molly before she joined us through funding by the BAR grant to help lift our transitions and additional supports work. On the second day she was here, she found herself in a conference room being asked to take on the role of project manager for school shutdown, and we later tapped her to bring our community partner programs that we offered this year to life. And so she's now turning her attention to the work she was originally tasked with doing. So Molly, I'm going to pass it off to you to give an overview of where we are with our programs.
Thank you, Malia. Good evening, everyone. This is my first quasi-starring role at a board meeting. I've only been an extra before, so I'm really grateful to be here with you tonight, and I appreciate your patience with my nervousness. First, I'd like to acknowledge the incredible work on the part of our school administrators to add envisioning and planning a meaningful summer experience for their students to their already overflowing plates. The conversations that I've had with them about what summer could be have helped us all regain some energy and hope for the future. We are offering school-based programs at every level. Our elementary programs are modeled after a research-based program through the Gorman Foundation, focusing on high engagement science experiences blended with math and literacy instruction with a heavy focus on social emotional learning. Our middle schools are offering a Sun School opportunity to help students achieve standards they struggled with during the year so that they arrive to their next grade level feeling efficacious. The high schools have embedded their Sun School into the end of the year, holding on to a support system created out of necessity last year, as well as offering high interest programs that help students achieve standards and earn units of proficiency so that they can stay on track to graduate and further pursue their purpose. Each elementary school is identifying students based on assessment data, school year attendance, social emotional needs, and sibling matches. We have moved our start date for elementary summer programs up a week in response to the staff survey about the times that best fit their availability and need to use August to rest and plan for the upcoming year. This next slide is just an overview of the programs we plan to offer and the number of students we've identified for those programs. Other students in the elementary school will be served through our partnership with the amazing people at Learning Works. So that this is not all the elementary students, but there's also Learning Works at a number of these schools. And now 2 of those amazing principals that I mentioned will provide a snapshot of the amazing programs that will happen at their sites.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Barb Fletcher. I'm the very proud Rowe principal. I'm so happy to be here tonight to share a snapshot of how summer programming for Rowe, Longfellow, and Presumpscot is shaping up. I'd like to begin just by acknowledging the amazing team of leaders and educators that are working diligently to combine 3 programs together. It's a lot of moving parts to get everybody kind of working on the same page and making sure we're all moving in the same direction toward our summer program. And also like to give a very special shout out to Emily Herlihy She is one of the wonderful Presumpscot teachers who is already putting countless hours toward design and creation of this program and keeping us all very organized. So thank you to Emily. So basically for Rowe, like as I said, we're combining Rowe, Longfellow, and Presumpscot. We're housing all 3 programs at Rowe School, which is very exciting. It's going to be a very busy building this summer with Learning Works there as well, and the rec department, many things going on. And basically we're designing programming for rising 1st through 5th graders that is STEAM focused. And we're looking to integrate curriculum, core curricular content into projects that make learning really fun and exciting and engaging for kids. So here on this slide, this is just an example of one of the modules we're working around doing design with to get ready for our summer programming. So again, an example, we plan to have many of these modules that will rotate through all 8 of our classrooms during the summer. So basically here, you have an essential question: how might we use simple machines to solve problems? And I just popped in a little picture there of an example of a do-it-yourself popsicle stick catapult that may be a project, an example of a project that kids might work on this summer. And then over here to the right, just listed some core curriculum alignment that will go along with this type of project or this type of module. So for this particular project, you have math, which is part of our illustrative math curriculum. Properties of 2D shapes is a unit, is an IM unit that would integrate nicely with this type of engineering project. For reading, looking at doing some nonfiction reading. For writing, some how-to writing. These types of projects really lend themselves to kids, writing about the process that they're going through to create and design. And the national Next Gen Science Standards, engineering design standards fit nicely with this type of project as well. So again, this is just an example of one of the modules we're looking to provide students the opportunity to engage with this summer. And basically our hopes are really to provide continued connection for kids to school staff, peers, and school routines throughout the summer, provide hooks into learning through hands-on projects, provide experiences for students to engage in discourse and problem solve around, and integrate, as I mentioned, core reading, writing, and mathematics learning that feels relevant and relatable to their lives, making summer learning very fun and productive. So that's just kind of a snapshot of what we're planning for our 3 schools. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. I am Lori Babinski. I am one of the lead teachers and the literacy coach at Reiki. And I'm going to share what Reiki and Easton are planning for this summer. And due to construction, we are housed at Easton this summer. So a big thank you to Boyd and to Kelly for allowing us to kind of take over part of their building this summer. Really appreciate that. And also really appreciate time to collaborate with them instead of working alone. So we're very similar to what Rowe is doing. We're inviting rising 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. And we were one of the schools that was really fortunate to work with Gorman in the beginning when we received the grant. And so we're really designing our program around the components that we looked at that summer when we did the research about what really what should summer programming look like. So the big piece is really engagement. And like the other elementary schools, we're using science. We're going to be using the wind and weather unit that is a FOSS kit. And it's similar to Rose in that every day begins with an essential question. Kids are thinking like a scientist. They're doing the inquiry process. They've got the science journal. And so every day they're doing an experiment and then looking at the results. So the picture to the right shows you kids that have made parachutes and they're dropping them over the railing at Reiki. So it's making parachutes, balloon rockets, a lot of really hands-on things that is highly engaging for our students. The second thing is that we have individualized academic goals. And so we're really looking at making sure kids are growing as readers. We'll be using leveled literacy and lively letters, which is the phonics program that we have been implementing the last 2 years. And then for math, our focus is around discourse, giving kids multiple opportunities to get used to the math routines and to really show their thinking. This year, due to hybrid, teachers have not been able to dig into centers as much as they would like to. So we're fortunate to have a math coach that's going to be working with our teachers, and they're going to dig into the centers. So fun for kids and also really supporting teachers as they grow in their skills. The third piece is to be joyful and camp-like. And you heard Molly say the piece around social, emotional, how critical that is this summer, how critical that always is, and the whole child goal with the Portland Promise. So we're going to have community celebrations, recognitions. We've struggled this year at Reiki with attendance, and so this will be celebrating attendance for students being there every day. And then typically we have a family engagement piece where families are invited in. That's not possible this summer with COVID, but we're going to be sending books home every day, so books that are on their reading level. And also students will be receiving 5 books that are related to the wind and weather. So they'll be able to take those home and share them with their families to talk about what they've learned. And then the fifth part, which is really another part we're excited about, is just collaborating with East End and being able to really dig into lively letters and illustrative math this summer. And we're just really excited. I agree with Molly. It's kind of breathed some life into us as we think about planning for our kids and as we look at class lists and look at the kids that would really benefit from this. So we feel fortunate this summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb and Lori. For our secondary programs, the criteria is focused on learning standards and course failures or incompletes in order to help students who are prepared to prepare for high school, to prepare for high school and are on track to graduate. The middle school Sun School will take place right after school gets out, the 7 days right after school gets out, and the other high school programs will occur through June and July. And here is an overview of those programs. And then we will hear from Ben Donaldson, the relentlessly hopeful and student-focused leader at Lyman Moore, to provide a snapshot of middle school Sun School.
Thank you, Molly, for that introduction. Hello, everybody. I am Ben Donaldson, the principal at Lyman Moore. And at the middle level this year, we're going to expand on something that we piloted and did at Lyman Moore a couple of years ago, which acknowledged the fact that when we print report cards and send home progress about how kids are doing, often we have students who, given the timeline, have not been able to meet or exceed standards, and they're really close to doing so. So what we're basing our whole strategy here around is providing more time and access to supports for those students who are really close to meeting, but that they're not there yet when the school year ends. And the idea of a summer extension or a Sun School opportunity for these kids to get access to retaught lessons or lessons taught differently, small group instruction, individual help, to really, as it says here, build on conceptual knowledge and confidence that kids need to move forward and be ready for the following school year. So one other key strategy that we'll use is that students will know when they've met or exceeded a standard, and they won't be waiting for their teachers to be telling them that they're done or they get it. One thing that we know kids need at the middle and high school level really is to be part of the assessment and to know how they're doing. So we'll be spending time just focused on ELA and math standards, and we're identifying kids through their report card data. If they're very close to meeting the standards, then they will qualify and be invited to come in and spend a very brief amount of time doing focused learning and getting the support that they need. So we're really excited that Jake Giesman has helped us scale the idea from Lyman Moore across all 3 middle schools for this spring and early summer. And we're hopeful that it's going to help our students make really meaningful progress. So thank you, Molly, and we will move forward.
Thanks, Ben. In addition to the amazing work being done by our school leaders and their staff, we are working on a number of district-based programs, both new and recurring. We will offer students who qualify for special education services extended school year supports, as well as offer programming for our Breathe students, our Beach students, and our functional life skills students. For our English language learners, we are working to have our elementary EL students in school-based programs with their peers where it best fits the student needs. And we are also offering 2 programs to support our IELD and CAL students in their transition to their next schools. Similarly, we're offering a program to help our rising pre-K and K students with their transition to school by setting up playgroups where they can meet with their teachers, meet with their classmates, and be able to see their schools and practice riding the bus. We are offering our expanded summer reads program that mails books home to students with follow-up engagement activities by a book champion at each elementary school. Paths received a grant to offer a career camp for middle school students to explore the amazing variety of opportunities at Paths and to help students see themselves further into their future. We are offering our traditional credit recovery program with expanded support for teachers to create engaging standards-aligned lessons for students to recover their courses. We have created a program for a staff member at each school to continue the amazing work of social workers and others to help our disengaged students reconnect with their school community in preparation for the fall. We are working with teachers to create standards-aligned asynchronous learning modules to help us be more responsive to students who fall behind on standards both this summer and throughout next school year. And finally, Grace is working with a team of teachers to offer affinity groups based on student identities to provide support, to provide students with a space to talk about their experiences and to support each other in their mental and emotional preparation for the upcoming school year. So slide 8, the next 2 slides is an overview of each of those programs I mentioned with the student numbers we are anticipating. And to highlight or to give a spotlight of one of those programs is the amazing Carlos Gomez, who will talk about the Language Academy program we are offering this summer.
Muchas gracias, Molly. Good to be with you all tonight. So I'll just talk briefly about our Language Academy, and this is designed for students who are new to 5th grade, new to middle school, or new to 6th grade, new to middle school, or new to high school. So, to put ourselves in that mindset, imagine that you're starting in a new school. You perhaps are maybe a little hesitant or perhaps a little shy or just cautious about how to approach your new environment. And the focus of this Language Academy is really to build the confidence of our students and in smaller groups, really focus on building a cohort of peers to help us sort of transition to this new grade span and to this new school community. In the Language Academy, our intention is to give students the keys to success. And they're multiple. There are in academic English, so reinforcing or expanding our students' academic English as they dive into the new work expectations and curriculum at the middle school or at the high school level. It's also an opportunity for our students to get a preview of what life is really like in the middle school and in high school. To experience it firsthand, to hear about it from peers, from others, as well as from adults. The Language Academy gives students the keys to succeeding in those new settings. And in the process, connecting with new friends, to have some friendly faces when they arrive in the fall, to make some important connections with peers and colleagues that look and sound like them and also have had a variety of experiences similar to theirs. So in the Language Academy, our students will hear from current middle school students and current high school students who have experience, have sat in our students' seats previously. They will also get a chance to hear what are those survival skills and thriving skills to thrive in these new settings.
Our Language Academy students this summer will also be introduced to language facilitators of similar linguistic and cultural backgrounds, as well as teachers, EL teachers, and hopefully connecting with some of the administrators at the middle schools and high schools so that they, again, can see a friendly face when they come in the fall. We will also work with community partners. We've had a wonderful relationship with the Center for Grieving Children, with the Maine Audubon Society, and a couple of other community organizations that will help emphasize some of the academic contents and some of the social and emotional aspects of this new time period in students' lives. We will visit schools. We'll understand the surrounding habitats. So looking at it from the flora and fauna perspective. So every one of our schools is in a unique social and biological or ecological habitat. So along with the Maine Audubon, we're hoping to connect on the inside and the outside of those school buildings and those communities and give the students really a sense of place, a sense of ownership, a sense of belonging, a sense of home in their new environments. And then at the same time, for example, with the Center for Grieving Children, our students learn about leadership and communication, learn to hear about each other's shared experience, and really have a year-long partner in the adults at the Center for Grieving Children to connect throughout the year. So students walk in perhaps into middle school or high school with a certain mindset, but our intention with the Language Academy is that by the end of the Language Academy, that the students are walking out confident in their ability to make new connections, to have peers and adults that they already know and can connect with, that they feel strong in their academic English, and overall more appreciative, curious, and proud of their own multilingualism and ready to make an impact on their new school and their new school community. So it's usually a very powerful experience for our students and for our adults, and looking forward to being with that group. So thank you.
Before we get to the meat of this slide, I first want to acknowledge and honor the teachers, ed techs, social workers, and other staff members who have applied to work summer programs this year. We were anticipating an enormous challenge in our ability to offer programming to students because of the toll this year has taken on our school staff. That so many have already applied and expressed their enthusiasm for creating a joyful and meaningful learning opportunity for students is such a testament to the people who have chosen Portland Public Schools as their professional home. Based on the summer staff survey from February, we listened to what teachers identified as the most important incentives, our summer pay rates and program timing, and we increased our pay rates for all roles and scheduled dates to allow teachers to have time to rest and plan for the upcoming school year. Our total staff needs are around 225 right now, and so far we've had 196 people who have completed the summer application, but there are still areas that require specific certifications that have currently not been filled. The biggest areas of need are nurses, ESY elementary teachers to provide one-on-one support in elementary programs, staff for our Breathe program, outreach coordinators, and high school EL teachers. So we are still very much working to recruit and bring those teachers into our program. And Grace Valenzuela will tell us about our community partner programs.
Good evening, everybody. So for this summer, we are going to continue with providing summer program offerings from our existing summer community partners, which are Learning Works and Boys and Girls Club. And the resources for these programs are funded by grants. The Learning Works program is STEAM and literacy focused academic enrichment using project-based, hands-on, and engaging curriculum. STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and math. The Boys and Girls Club programs support the high school transition and also the supporting struggling middle school students and their families. And we are waiting to hear on 2 grants for these programs. With the coronavirus funds focused on mitigating learning gaps as a result of the pandemic, we are adding a new component in our community programming that will provide students opportunities that support their growth and development, as well as fun and wholesome activities to enhance their social and emotional health. We are seeking 500 slots or seats from various summer camps and programs. It will be on a first-come, first-served basis for students receiving free and reduced lunch. We have an allotment of $800 per dollars per student to use for any one of these programs offered by our partners. Next slide, please. This slide shows how many students are in each program at the moment: 210 for Learning Works, 80 plus for Boys and Girls Club, and 50 for the high school internship program. Of the 500 slots that we have as a target, we have 474 promised by the following partners, and I want to name them and thank them for their graciousness, interest, and flexibility in partnering with us. And these are the Children's Museum and Theater of Maine, Boys and Girls Club, the Portland Rec, 317 Maine Music, YMCA, Portland Stage, Wolf Neck's Farm, Maine Audubon, Breakwater, Telling Room, North Yarmouth Academy, Waynfleet School, Blue Wave Basketball, and Portland Community Squash. So far, these are the partners who have agreed to join us. And for families needing more than 1 week of support so that they can go to work, Portland Rec and Boys and Girls Club offer all-day fun and play type of programming for elementary school-age children. For specialized camps, and I just want to give an example here, we have a variety of day camp experiences that focus on art, music, STEM, or sports. And so I just want to give 2 examples. Rising 1st to 5th grade campers attending the theater summer camp at the Children's Museum will join together as an ensemble of team and discover the collaborative process of putting on a play, from writing or picking the script to the final bow. The 2-week program will be spent playing theater games that build trust, rehearsing the chosen script, and creating props and costumes. 317 Maine Community Center Music Discovery Camp is a great fit for 7 to 10-year-old children who already play an instrument or who are beginners. In addition to instrument learning, campers will get to do fun workshops, games, and activities. And for students who are older, 11 to 14 years old, with 1 or more years of experience playing an instrument, the 317 Music Center offers Jam Camp. In addition to individual instruction, there will be small group workshops and jam sessions. So these are all sounding like fun programs and opportunities for our students. And I will turn it over back to Molly.
Gail.
Turn it over to Gail Cressy.
Hi, everyone. I have the pleasure of doing a brief overview of where we're at with the budget for summer. So as you heard the superintendent mention, we set aside a significant amount of the ESSER 2 funding to expand our reach in the summer and diversify the programs. We used a target of a little over 2,000 students, which would almost double our reach from 2 years ago before the pandemic. and increased what we would offer as a per pupil cost to $800. In the 2 years ago, our average cost per pupil was $250. So we knew we needed to increase that, both to incentivize staff to work and also to offer programming that was more diversified than we have in the past. And then that took us up to a little under $2 million, and we added additional funds for centralized supports, because of course, when we expand what we're offering, it increases complexity. And so we have set aside funds for some central systems to increase supports to be able to implement what we have planned. Next slide. Great. So here we have a preliminary look at our budgets for our school-based programs. You'll note some differences across those amounts, and that's really impacted by the number of students that are being targeted for the programs, which sometimes is affected by the availability of staff in those programs. Differences in programming that our goal was not necessarily to be consistent across schools, but to have schools develop programs that met the needs of the students in their schools. And then just the reality of the timing of budget development. Some schools are further along in the process than others. And so some of those amounts are more firmer than others, and some are still in development. Then this is the overview of the district-based programs on the left that you heard others describe and their preliminary budgets. And then on the right, those centralized supports that I talked about for supporting school and district programs. You'll also note that the community partner programs is embedded on the left in the district-based budgets. And this would be the summary, just breaking it down by school-based, district-based, and community partner programs. And again, you'll note that we're still under $2 million at this point, but these budgets are still being finalized and developed. And we are marching towards getting that finalized so that we can complete that portion of the ESSERF application.
Thanks, Gail. So just very briefly, as we close out, I just want to highlight some of the next steps in terms of where we're at. Here you see some of the key next steps that are in progress as it pertains to school and district programs. Over the next couple of weeks, we're landing program design, student invitation lists, communications, staffing, and final budgets. We're aiming to send invites to our school and district programs on May 17th with the goal of having families confirmed by June 1st. And then in terms of the community partners, as Grace shared, we're still in the process of finding the seats, but we're making great headway. We have many great applicants for the part-time seasonal coordinator position and hope to have determined who will take that role by the end of this week or next. And we're deep in the throes of building out the matching process for the partner slots and coordinating with multilingual around communications and supports for families with navigating these opportunities. And so as we wrap up, we're happy to take questions, but briefly before we do, I want to acknowledge how much of a team effort this has been and continues to be. It is thanks to the commitment and effort of many staff across the system and partners in our community that we are able to pull all of the levers to offer meaningful summer experiences for our students. Our ability to expand programming in this manner is also due in part to what we've learned from those who have been involved in summer programming in prior years. We're deeply grateful to everyone who's committed to our summer efforts, past and present. In particular, I'd love to acknowledge Molly Myers for her leadership, her tireless efforts to support school and program leaders and to ensure that all of the details are attended to. She has brought the perfect combo of vision and practicality to this work. And also to Gail, who's shepherded our summer work for years and who has partnered with Molly on the systems-wide planning with a focus on building strategic, student-centered, and equity-oriented budgeting strategy to ensure we're using our resources to truly advance equity. So thanks to you both. And with that, we will wrap up and then, if appropriate, are happy to take questions.
Thank you so much. It's clear what a team effort that is just in the number of people participating in the presentation. So thank you so much, everyone. And great job, Molly, with your inaugural presentation to the board. I know that there are lots of questions, and I'm going to start with Ms. Chung, and then we'll hear from Mr. Rodriguez.
Well, thank you everyone for doing all the planning for the summer school programs and making this presentation and presenting it to all of us. This presentation really made my day. I feel like it was very exciting to hear about all the engaging programs being offered. This is actually a really near and dear topic for me because I think the summertime opportunity gap is something that's really overlooked in a lot of different situations. And coming from a family with 2 immigrant parents, and my parents never really knew about the opportunities in our community when it came to like summer camps and academic opportunities and like lessons and things like that. I recall my summers probably going outside playing and like sitting on the couch watching TV like a lot of the summer when I came back to school and like took tests, and then my test scores dropped where other people's didn't as much. And then that brought a sort of like lack of confidence. So I'm really happy to see this program be coming to light and see that we have a lot of funding coming from it. And I have a couple short questions. The first being, are there going to be transportation for like the students in these programs?
Yeah. Do you want to answer that, Molly, or you want me?
I can take that. There is transportation there'll be transportation for students in the elementary and middle school programs. Traditionally in the high school programs, we have not supplied transportation. The community partner program right now is, we don't have transportation for that, but we're trying to figure out solutions to that, similar to what we figured out with community partners this year with the child care community partner program. So.
And then my second question is since we only have like a certain amount of like limited slots, I was wondering, based off of the information that we have on the need of like students who need that type of extra support, do we see that there might be certain students who like we max out the amount of students, and then there are going to be a certain amount of students who need it, but there just isn't space?
I can take that one, Emily. We aren't sure. This is our first time, at least in recent history. I know there was a time a while back when we had some vouchers, but this is the first time in recent history where we have this blended set of offerings between what we offer internally and then working with partners. And so the goal of 500 was, approximated based on looking at seats we can offer, number of students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, and just trying to give ourselves a bit of a target. And we fully anticipate that we're going to learn a lot this year, both about how to go about this and as well as about the scope of the need, that's the real need. And so we know that we'll have this funding source for next summer as well. So I think it's very possible that we expand it even more next summer. But at this point, given what I shared about the constraints with timing and whatnot, we're trying to go for something ambitious yet realistic. And so it's possible, but we don't know yet. And we'll definitely be through all of our systems tracking that information so we understand, did we fully meet the need, or was there a big gap? And if so, how big was it, and at what grade spans, and all of those things.
Thank you for clarifying that. And then my last question is, because there was a certain, I think it was like 25 to 30 teachers who we were missing for the amount of need for hiring, have we considered having a type of volunteer system for high schoolers to come and be a part of the summer programming at the elementary school and middle school grades? Because I see a lot of my peers and stuff always looking for opportunities to be busy in the summer to a certain degree, if they can't get internships or jobs and stuff, to volunteer and put something on their resume. But also it could be I think a fun time and also even the load for maybe some teachers.
Yeah, great thought, Emily. Both your comments and your questions always push all of us. So thank you. I mean, I can share a little bit. Molly, chime in if you have more to add to that. It is something we've talked about. We do have a very nascent emerging high school internship program that we've talked about, including having students placed in both our programs and potentially community partner programs. People talk about it like a counselor and training type model there. So that is very new and something that some educators in our high schools have some inspiration around. So we do have funding to support that. I'm not sure that's going to help us solve for the teacher gaps, because I think interns would need to work under or with a teacher. And so it doesn't, at least to the thinking we've done so far, help solve for that particular issue. But the concept is definitely on the radar and carved out in our budget, and we are hiring a coordinator to sort of support high school internship work for this summer as well.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chung. Thank you for sharing your own personal experience as well as for your very good questions. I do think it really helps us to do our work as a board when we're hearing about our own students' experience within the district. So thank you for bringing your full self to the board work. Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So of course, thank you for the presentation, and I'll double down on what we've said. It's impressive, the workload, but again, the enthusiasm and the effort, it's incredible. So very, very motivating. I had a couple of just quick questions. On the slide where we're showing this, I think it was towards the elementary schools, where the number of students that we've identified, and it was broken down by schools. If possible, if we can have the segregated data on the students that are going to be attending the summer programs, please. It's difficult. I could always look up the enrollment per school, but it's difficult to see what percentage of the total school has been identified. You know, you see big fluctuations between one school and the other, but you also have big fluctuations in enrollment. So if possible, just to see what percentage of the population we've identified in general as part of the segregated data. One thing I wanted to highlight on the presentation that we did on the elementary section, we had a really helpful example with the catapult project, and the way that it would. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate when we have that level, and I know that we can't really spend all day talking about that level of detail, but that was really helpful just to see the way that we break down a project and what we're going to do. That level of context is incredibly helpful for the board to see, and it breaks us away from what most of us fall into thinking that happens in a classroom. Especially those that have not been around a classroom recently, we fall back to our personal experiences, and clearly it's so different. So again, appreciate the way that was presented today. The last thing that I wanted to say, on the shortages of staff, or not just the shortages, but rather in the shortages, we identified the positions that we were missing. Of the 225 that have been filled, if we can also have just like a breakdown of what they make up, just in general, so that we can have an idea as well. Assuming that most of them are just teachers, but the breakdown of what we're missing was helpful to see. And then the very, very last thing that I wanted to ask was, we mentioned, I was so happy that Emily mentioned the transportation, or that asked about transportation. I was wondering, for our high school students, because they have Metro passes, is there a way to find out how much their usage has fluctuated? I know that there was a lot of hesitancy to get back into the Metro system from some families. So if there's, and I'm not entirely sure how we would go about this, but if there's a way to assess how much that's fluctuated and how accessible transportation is, because that was obviously a huge way of supporting families when we have our students use the Metro. So just to see how that's coming along, and that's all I have. Thank you again for the presentation.
Could I just ask a clarification? Because I think all of your questions are really, I'm hearing them as next steps, so definitely taking note. But the teacher breakdown data, can you just clarify that, Mr. Rodriguez?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so we said that the 20 or 30 positions that are still yet to be filled, there was a breakdown of what the most needed are, right? We said nurses. So I was just wondering if we can have just a general breakdown of all of the positions that we have, the 220 already filled, just to contextualize what this mass influx of positions is going to actually be. And that's all.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
And I think there's something, I think in relation to a question Emily asked and kind of related to your first comment, generally in the summer, like in the past summers when you invite a larger number of students, but about 1/3 is pretty consistently the number of students who confirm and attend the programs. So when you're seeing those numbers, those are the numbers sort of based on that sort of factor. Like we don't, if a lot of students who are invited to summer don't attend summer. So we generally sort of try to over-invite so that we can make sure we meet the numbers that we've identified.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Ms. Bondo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Molly, and thank you, the team. Some of my questions already got an answer from one Emily asked and one Mr. Rodriguez also asked. So some of those are follow-up questions. I have a question on the high school non-pass rates. I see on that slide we had a 23%, I think, if I remember. And I just want to understand, I know this is going to be on the, that means from freshman to junior. So I'm just wondering about senior because they're going to have the graduation in June. So do we have some plan for the backup in case some of the students need to catch up before graduation?
I think I'll start the answer, Molly, you can elaborate, but I think we have the credit recovery as well as the standards-based recovery modules. So there's options for students that need to recover a whole course or options for students who just need to master a standard, but they don't need the whole course. So those are the two kind of options we're building for high school students to help them over the summer get caught up with what they need.
So I just want to understand, those are for the seniors, right? That's what I'm asking for.
Yeah, so there's two, so a couple things about the percentage. I mean, it's a tricky number to find since Casco Bay has a running total. So the students aren't done yet, right? So there's still, that number every high school is working relentlessly on their seniors to make sure they achieve their standards and can graduate. They also have the embedded Sun School for that purpose for the seniors. And then Portland we're working on a program for right after to help with the seniors. Casco Bay is doing the same thing. Deering has a couple of options. They're not only for seniors, but they are for seniors. So, trying to get them right now, right, and then having a couple of plans for the students that still need it.
Okay, so if the students still need it, in case we have that percentage of students who still need it, do they gonna be on the graduation process or they will be graduate after that?
I think I'm gonna need to follow up with you on that, Ms. Bondo, just to make sure so you're saying you just want to know more specifically if they're going to walk at graduation?
Exactly, yes. By knowing then they need to come back during summer to do some catch-up work and then doing some because I'm looking at the time frame then. Then they have to be able to achieve and to catch up so they can meet the standard for graduation.
So can I just, I think I can answer that. This will help some students to be able to meet their graduation requirements prior to the time that we actually have graduation. But that is not, obviously we're graduating kids in early June and most of these programs are happening afterwards. So these would be for students who will then have a late graduation, what we report as fifth year graduates and so on. So I think that's it to your senior specific question. There will be students who are not helped by this program and will not have met their graduation requirements. But as Molly said, the schools are working, consistently and constantly with those students to help them to get across the finish line.
Okay, great. Yes, that's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you so much, Superintendent. So my second question is, I just want to emphasize what Mr. Rodriguez mentioned about the data that we need to be reporting, because I see on your next step presentation is a lot of identification still in progress. So I think we really want to see on the raise and grade and the different schools are all the different level of student can be recognized and in need. So I would like to have a good follow-up on that in a couple of months, if possible. So my sub-question is on the literacy. Because when I look at the research, the national research reports, they really been mentioned because of the pandemic. Last fall, about 40% of the mainstream first grader, they came back and fall behind their grade level in literacy. So I think if we can have some data also in our different school setting, in a specific literacy, how many of students been falling below the grade level after June, before to enter the summer class. If we can have those data, I would be appreciate also. And I look at the family engagement for the literacy, and I see East End and Reiki, they have some, sending book at home. So I want to, I wonder how, let me just refer to that. I wonder how we are able to measure the success of the family engagement involvement, because we're sending book at home, and I know we're doing that most of the time. So we have families and parents who just don't speak English at home. So I try to understand how we measure the success on the family engagement, especially right now that the literacy is really a learning loss. So do we have any other strategy beside of that?
Gail, do you want to talk a little bit about that? I know that you've done some significant work around the success of the book program.
So yeah, we're planning to
hey Dave, thank you.
Invest again in the summer reads program, and part of that program, which grew out of research from Harvard, is the importance of engaging with families around the book and activities that could be done. So we developed a tracking system. Jesse Robinson, our director of curriculum, sort of led the process to track the engagement that our book champions, we have book champions reaching out to families to see the level of engagement, and they actually learned a lot last, ensure that they receive the book and build some enthusiasm and encourage them to interact with their child around the books that were being sent home.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And I think the last one is going to be maybe a follow-up question. So I know he's challenging because that's the pandemic and we're going all over the place right now. So I just wonder if we already start thinking about how to measure the outcomes after the summer program. I mean, everything happening. We have just 1 month, like we put June to July, and then what's going to happen next? I mean, how we measure the performance, the outcomes, or everything's going to get rolling to the next year school when the student will be in school. So that's the time we can measure how they succeed, how they brought some more new skills on literacy or everything that we have established during summer, or we have some exit testing strategies come out after the summer program to be able to evaluate and assess the success of the program.
Yeah, I mean, I can give a little bit of an answer, and then Gail or principals feel free to chime in. I think Ben Donaldson spoke a little bit about that, the assessment strategy for the Sun School, where we're working transparently with students on going on the goals that they have, and they're looking at, are they mastering those standards as they go? So I think it's a little bit different by program. So depending on the objective or the goal, we have a different way of measuring the outcome. So for Sun School, the example I'm giving, it's looking at if students mastered the standards that they're focused on during that time. And so being able to pull up that data. The elementary principals talked about an emphasis on content-based literacy and looking at some of those literacy skills. So Barb or Lori, if you want to speak a little bit about how you guys think of measuring outcomes there, please feel free. And then I can talk about the diagnostics at the beginning of the year. But do either of you want to? Yeah, Barb, go ahead. I see.
Yeah, I would just say, so part of the criteria that we're using to identify students for summer programming is assessment data that we already have and assessment data that we'll continue to collect through, over the next 6 weeks. So we'll be able to use that as baseline data. And then I think that's another piece of the design that we still need to work through. Speaking for the 3 schools that are working together here in terms of what the pre and post data is going to look like for summer, so that we really know. It's absolutely critical that we know at the end of this program where kids are and based on where they were. So that's something that we're trying to kind of hash out right now, but recognizing that that's a key component to the programming.
Okay. Thanks, Barb. And I see, Laura, did you want to add a little piece to that?
Yeah, so we're doing the same. We're using data from the spring, but we've also decided, since we're using the leveled literacy program, there are running records that we can do that last week. We don't want to take so much time doing assessments that we take away from the program and enjoy, but we thought that would be a seamless way to do running records that last week to show the progress that the students have made, to capture that.
Thank you. And so, and Ms. Bondo, I think just the summary comment, though, is that, and we've talked about the broader work we are doing around assessment strategy as a system. So we have better ways of looking in aggregate at achievement data. And so that's another kind of body of long-term work where we're looking at diagnostics in the beginning of the year and those pieces as well. So.
And we've built into the funding of the site coordinator for each program for planning in the goals, but also for evaluation on the back end to report out. So it's sort of built into the system as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. That makes sense to me. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bondo. Mr. Russell-Better and Mr. Burke, I apologize, but I'm not sure which of you had your hand up first. So I'm going to go to Mr. Burke, since Ms. Russell-Better is pointing in one direction, not his direction on my screen, but in a different direction than herself. So Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all. This is rich and exciting update. Processing a lot. I have some comments and some questions. At the top of my comments, I just want to say this is what it seems that equity looks like. It takes this level of investment to unlock and activate the opportunities that I, as a middle-class parent and family, look around and be like, this is what my kid gets to do, and this is why Portland's wonderful. And so it's really good to hear that we can activate the city in the same way and our partners in the same way, at least for 2 years for others. Really encouraged to see the list of community partners and what we're looking to do within our own, in our own places. I'd like to see what I saw in the elementary school around STEAM, in particular with the inclusion of the A and some of the thinking and going on there. Quick question there. I saw a healthy dose of outdoor learning. What's a healthy dose?
So, well, I mean that because that was part of our job that came out of the job description for the teacher positions at the programs that we're hosting. Healthy dose. I mean, defining the time frame would be challenging to do right now. But at Rowe, I mean, we have the benefit of such a beautiful campus and so much outdoor space. So we're really going to try to maximize that. It really is going to depend on the project, and it's going to depend on what the kids are working on in terms of, how much time they're outside and what they're doing out there. But we have an amazing opportunity to be able to integrate the outdoor pieces. So so there will be outdoor learning time within, again, with so many spaces. And then there will also be some time for play and socialization as well. So I can't really quantify it at this time, but there will be lots of opportunity for that.
I would just say, I'm assuming, Mr. Burke, your question's a broad one about like what we're doing holistically as well. And so I think most of our programs are integrating the outdoors. You heard Carlos talk about the Language Academy and the partnership with the Audubon, and how it's like super connected to being outdoor in your own environment and making those symbolic and concrete connections. So and then, you look at a lot of the community partners that we're working with who are doing outdoor work. So I think our focus on outdoor learning is being carried through in the summer. And I would say kind of leveled up as well across community partnerships, as well as in some of the district and school-based programs.
Great. Yeah. And definitely thinking about it holistically, not isolated as it's only for one thing or the other. I'll carry forward some comments that I hear pretty consistently from people I'm in community with, which is that more outdoor time, please. It's encouraging to see the tents and to see the stumps and to see the infrastructure, but we're not there yet in terms of the activation of those resources. So I hope the summer is a time where we can definitely make use of the magic that's Maine summer. I'd say there's also no bad weather. There's only bad gear. And while we have the resources, it might be a time to invest in a gear library for our students that may not otherwise have the gear they need to enjoy the time outside. Language Academy. Yeah. Carlos, anytime I hear you talk about what you're doing, I just swoon. Like, it's the best. And hearing what you're doing with the integration with Audubon and the unique flora and fauna of each place that we're in. I mean, yes, you speak my love language. So thank you. And thank you for all the work that you're doing there. Wondering in the outreach space, I tried to look back through the slides to make sure I didn't miss it, but I didn't hear specifically what we're doing on the outreach. And I'll say a little bit more before looking for a response. Wondering what we might be doing at a neighborhood level, how we're getting to where people are as part of our outreach. And if there's not ways like we heard about engaging students and families, and I'll have more to say about that in terms of maybe some homegrown programming that we can invest in from an incubator approach over the next 2 years. But just right now, anything you would want to say about outreach to where people are, not just in creating enticing opportunities for them to come to.
Yeah, I mean, I have a kind of a thought and a tee up to you, Molly, on one of your ideas. But generally, I would say, we're going to be activating the usual mechanisms. But I understand, and I hear your question. You're asking beyond that, and so we are, from a planning process, getting clear on what are we doing? Do we have people? Who are the kids? We are now just starting to figure out how are we going to communicate? First of all, how do we get the options out there? What's the process? And then how do we communicate? So I would say we are not we're not super far along in a kind of fully fleshed out strategy. But we are talking about ways to get the word out beyond the traditional mechanisms we use. And so, Molly, maybe you could speak about just the one quick example you've given with, I don't know if it's a shelter you've talked about or the housing authority.
So Portland Housing Authority, I've been talking to them all year about trying to figure out ways to collaborate more and have conversations. There's some obvious confidentiality struggles that we have is one of the biggest ones in terms of really working together. But I talked to them about the community partner program idea and about their help in sort of finding students and helping them register and kind of navigate the process. So that's certainly one place. I've also, thanks to Mr. Yusuf, I don't see him on my screen. Oh, I do. Has introduced me to a few people as well that we can reach out to and share this idea, share the process, and they can help as well. So we're expanding. I'm ever expanding my knowledge of community partners and my connection with the amazing people who run them. So as I get more, those would be the places where I would share that process, share the opportunity, and share that process to get their help.
Can I just interject something to it? And I said this in my introductory comments. I know Malia hit on it a couple times as well. That very much. This is our first run through at this scale, so there are things that we're going to do much better the second time around from having tried different things this year. So I do, sort of ask for everybody's understanding of the sort of the scale at which we're working. And, that's one particular area where we know that there's a huge opportunity. I think that, that's a huge opportunity that carries over into next summer, but also carries over into the work that we try to do next year to extend our outreach and, address attendance issues and things along those lines that have become such a central part of the dialogue about what this year has been like, but that existed before this year as well. So I do think that, we're learning and trying, and we will be doing some things and learning along the way how to do it next summer, how to do it better in the fall, and so on. So I think that just want to make sure that we always keep that we're learning piece as part of the way that we're approaching this.
Absolutely, lifelong learning. That's what we do here. Let's see. Is there any opportunity to bring in guaranteed basic income again with this funding, or has that been categorically ruled out after previous denial from the state?
We've not pursued it any further. I think we have. Definitely not with this $2 million, dollars for summer school. I think those other conversations for how we use the additional federal funding are, conversations that will evolve, over the coming months. But, we're definitely not ruling anything out, and we don't have a plan for it either.
Great. It makes sense. I was just thinking about the holistic of the family system and what could be useful even as a pilot over 2 months. So that's why I asked, but totally understand that it hasn't been part of things thus far. Sorry. Go ahead.
Just excited about the EBT program that we talked about earlier, because that is, a small, but, it's actual cash and people's, EBT cards for, so I think that is an example of some of the work that is happening broadly, not just, in PPS.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up again. The last thing I'll bring up is there a chance, when I look at the community partners, there's various degrees of competencies and proficiencies in working from like a diversity and inclusion perspective, I would say, but they're all white-led organizations to my understanding, and wondering if there's not a opportunity over the next 2 years to incubate equity-centered, BIPOC-led effort that could spin off after the 2 years. And I look to the Creative Reaction Lab down in St. Louis that have programs that invest in particularly Black and Latinx students to become equity-centered designers in their communities. And that's a connection that I've helped made before, but it broke when there was a staff transition there. But just something that I'd say in terms of the go big opportunities we have here to change the fundamental environment that we're operating in, that's an opportunity that I see. And I know it's a complicated, nuanced kind of thing to try to pull off. Well, there's enough complicated, nuanced things that you're trying to pull off right now, but I need to put it out there. So for your consideration.
Yeah, certainly consistent with the direction we want to go. And I don't know if Grace, do you want to talk at all? I know it's sort of just emerging, but the affinity group work and how you're thinking about that, because I think it's probably the closest to what Board Member Burke is talking about right now.
Mute, Grace.
So the affinity group program that conceptually what it is we are going to have students who are going to be with Latinx, Black, Asian, and white, and they will be led by people who belong to those affinity groups as well. And so it will focus on leadership development, empowerment, community engagement, and so that's the closest that we have, because we do not really have the time to build, programs at this time with our community partners. But knowing that this could be set as an example of how we could do this, which would be specific to specific affinity groups at this moment in time. So,
and I
hear your point. I hear your point. At some point in time before, when we had this big grant, there was such a big programming that allowed different community ethnic community groups to create their own summer programs for their their children. And it's an outreach. It could be that could also be community partner that we're reaching out to, that this could happen. But at this point, we have not given any promises.
And I would just add, thanks to the introductions from Dr. Ahmed Deering and Mr. Yusuf, I've been meeting with a variety of community partners and sort of getting to know them and sort of talking about what we're doing this summer. And I know that a few of them are already sort of thinking, they didn't necessarily have a program in mind yet, and so they are sort of like thinking of that and what slots, or would it be internships and things. So there is even potential for that this summer. But if not, I've plan on building and nurturing those relationships throughout next year too, because we even talked about how this might look going into the fall and forward after that. So I appreciate the introductions from Mr. Yusuf.
That's all good to hear. And Grace, I deeply trust your experience of what's been done before and what you're taking on as an approach that seems both feasible and is built upon all that learning. So thanks for sharing that with me on what's happening there. To the effect of who might be on a list, and also just to own, as I'm often the loud advocate for the outdoor learning space. I'm a Maine guide. It's deeply part of who I am, but I know that I don't always know how to build inclusive outdoor spaces. And I would point to, there's an outdoor Afro group and others that might be better suited than I to help extol the benefits and ways in which to build inclusive outdoor experiences. So just as a resource, I'll note that. Thank you for all the time. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Ms. Russell-Better.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to acknowledge the huge lift that this has been for staff to put all of this together, and just was super excited to see all the detail of the really great programming this summer. So I just had one question was kind of following up to Mr. Burke's question about outreach. I guess I just was curious, and I really hear what the superintendent said about this is all new and a big change, and so that the expectation of outreach, I understand, is not going to be like in a couple of years maybe what we're able to do. But I guess I was just trying to understand in thinking about how we don't have some of the informal ways that we communicate, right? This year, we don't have the word of mouth chatting after school. We don't have those ways that maybe, families talk to staff or talk to each other. So I'm just wondering what in a normal year for Sun School programming is the multilingual piece of outreach? Is that, through, mail being sent home that's, in kids' folders that's translated? Is it phone calls? Just for me to understand, how does that piece usually work for multilingual families? And then to see how that is a big lift to then add this many more families. So just to understand.
We are used to this. Yes, we are used to this, Ms. Russell-Better, because really the majority of students taking advantage of summer programming have always been multilingual families. So we have a system in place of having one registration that is common. So it's not every school having their own registration, so that could be translated. So that's the first step, that schools can send that out. Then we have a common list that is shared with our parent community specialists, and we look at who have taken advantage or signed up already, and the people who have not. We do the outreach via phone call or WhatsApp, and so it's that's another system that many of our families use, the platform WhatsApp, because it doesn't, use data. So then a lot of it has to really be done by phone calls to follow up, to make sure that they have sent in their registration and actually help them complete those registration forms.
Okay, thank you, Grace. That's really helpful. That makes a lot of sense. This isn't starting from scratch. This is, families that you already have the information and then targeting, it sounds like, who you need to follow up. But so that's a significant amount of more phone call and WhatsApp and just connecting with families, it sounds like. So, so thank you for just giving the background on that. So my other couple quick questions were just, I know transportation was already brought up, and I was just trying to imagine, I don't know if this is for you, Molly, but so of course, like I was picturing, Przemysl going to Rowe and Reiki going to East End. So with the transportation, is the plan, I know this is still to be worked out, is the plan to pick up from homes, or is it picking up from the school? And I'm just trying to wrap my head around that, because I'm sure at Reiki too, but at Przemysl, I know so many families walk. That's how they would get to school. So is it picking up at the school versus at families?
Yeah, so 2 years ago, I worked as the summer programs coordinator. That was the first year transportation shifted from picking up at home to creating bus stops.
Yeah.
So that will still be the plan this summer. So a set of bus stop, a run for Przemysl at certain bus stops based on addresses. They still use addresses, but just sort of like get locations close to the addresses. So that way it's also all kids can ride, which will be a little more complicated this year given COVID restrictions. But yeah, so it'll be bus stops for schools to go to programs. They're just going to be riding a little bit longer for some students.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And then my last piece was just about school meals. Like in summer programming, is it usually that meals are provided as they would be in the regular school year, or is it like the summer meal program has been, and that would just be sort of coordinated with getting meals?
Yeah, so this summer I've been working with Jane. We're going to use the same model that we have this year, which is students will get breakfast and then they will have lunch to go. Okay. So there'll be a similar model to that. There's a couple programs that run till 2:30, so there'll be some, navigating of cafeteria or outdoor space for that. But there are meals at the sites for programs. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, and that makes sense, that the timing about getting lunch, but also I'm assuming part of that is reducing the need for kids to be gathered and eating meals, but getting the breakfast there and then the lunch. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Russell-Better. Ms. Thompson.
I apologize. Somehow I think I live in the country, but I live in the city of Portland. Somehow Spectrum doesn't stay connected very well down here. So you may have covered this. And so first of all, I'll echo what Ms. Better said. Wow, I'm pulling this all together. It's absolutely amazing of what you've been able to do in such a short time. But my question was around specific subjects. So our summer programming in the past for high schoolers were, okay, if you didn't pass X class, you would take that in the summertime. And I see that on the budget, there's something that says credit recovery. Is that incorporated into this? So if you unfortunately didn't pass Algebra 1, then you have a specific class you can go to, and that's what that is?
Yeah, we're generating lists right now, and some of the students will end up not needing it, but like we're generating lists right now to get a sense of the subjects that we will need to hire for. Okay. And then this is what we've done every year that we've offered credit recovery, is that we sort of get a sense of the largest need and offer those courses.
Okay. So all of the remedial and the extra, it's absolutely amazing. I'm just wondering, for some of the students, have we reached out to the colleges as well, the SMCCs and USM, about some of the possibilities there of students taking classes over there in the summertime? Have we done that?
We have not this summer. We did last summer, given that it was going to be remote. We have not this summer in terms of like enrichment,
Well, I think that we had some programs with our ELL learners as well that took place in the summertime, if I'm not mistaken, and then also additional classes for students, not necessarily credit recovery, but building up that much more. So I didn't know if that would be a part of this or it's a separate from conversation.
Yeah, we have it. Yeah, do you want to take that, Melanie?
Yeah, I would say that the short answer is no, that's not in our list of programs right now, in terms of what we're managing towards, but we can, yeah.
Okay.
And Maine colleges do offer early college credit courses. So we do have, and I know because I've seen the communication coming from high schools that, counselors and principals are sending this information out to families. So, for graduates and things along those lines to be able to enroll in college-bearing classes over the summer.
And that's what I want to know about too, Superintendent. Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. And my other question was, I don't know whether it's Molly or Barb, but I'm looking at the staffing shortages, and especially we can talk about it offline, but I work at Maine Medical Center in the nursing department, and I have a nurse in my household, and a lot of them in summertime are looking to pick up, potentially other. So I'm wondering offline who I would speak to, and I'd be happy to engage in that area that I could certainly help you in that area. So if you want somebody contact me offline.
I'll do that, Ms. Thompson. Thank you, and connect you with Tina, our head nurse, who's also working on solutions. Yeah. So she's been trying to figure out things. So that would be fantastic.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. I'm glad you resolved your connectivity issues. It's very frustrating. Mr. Youssef.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, all the team. I have a follow-up question, what Ms. Thompson just mentioned about the subjects needed. Are you guys providing for community partners, and is that a standard way that you check if the students are doing progress? My second question, maybe I missed this one, but has been answered. But for the summer teacher positions, is there an increased rate?
I can take the second first and the first second. So there is an increased rate from what we have historically done for the teacher pay this summer. And that was specifically related to being responsive to our current situation and our awareness of the need that we wanted to pull something pretty big off, and we needed a lot of staff. And Molly had referenced earlier the staff survey. The feedback on the staff survey, in addition to the timing of the programs, the other issue that came back was the pay. So we've been partnering with, of course, HR, but also the PEA to work out an agreement around that has enabled us to do that. There's more details there, but just generally the answer is yes. And we're happy with the collaboration we've had with the PEA on that. And then in terms of your other question, it was about community partners and measuring outcomes there. The community partners that Grace spoke about in terms of the 500 seats, we're thinking about those as more related to social emotional learning. So we're not having an expectation that there's specific academic standards that students are working on, mastering, and being assessed on in those settings. That's really about really leaning into the mental health, the social emotional learning, the relationships, the connection. All of those things have connections to academic outcomes as well, as we know, but we're not measuring outcomes in that way with those programs in the summer. We do some things like that with programs during the year, and I know LearningWorks definitely looks at their outcomes pretty closely. So Gail, if you want to share a little bit about that, but in terms of the bigger kind of camps and all that Grace spoke about, we're really looking more at engagement.
All right, thank you so much.
Say something, but LearningWorks is required to track attendance as a metric, and then also they're looking at our assessment scores to see if the combination of their school year after school program and summer programming is having an impact on academic outcomes.
And should we get the 2 grants with the Boys and Girls Club, both of those grants require some degree of reporting about academic progress too.
Thank you. That was helpful. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Youssef. I just have one last question before I believe we'll wrap up in terms of board questions. And maybe I apologize in advance for asking this question because I realize just what a Herculean effort this all is and the very real constraints in pulling it off on such abbreviated timeline and with so much else happening. But are there any opportunities to scale up further?
We actually spoke today about a communication we're going to share with our leaders that we need to sort of pause new idea generation and just double down on implementation. Frankly, I do not think that we have the bandwidth, and it's not a resource issue. I mean, we can't even find the people we need to take the roles to do the work. So I feel pretty proud of the team and what they have been able to pull off. I frankly feel astounded by the scale of what we're doing and the timeline that we have and the context within which we're working, that we have school-based programs in all of our sites, given the fact that our principals started that planning while they were trying to plan reopening, that we're pulling off district-wide programs, that we have 500 seats, a whole new entire community program. So I guess I would say on behalf of the team, no, I don't think there's the potential to scale. And normally I wouldn't say that, and Superintendent, you might have a different take, but we talked about it today, and even just internally, we're at a point where we need to pause. I mean, there's other just practical logistics, the grant. In order to secure the money, we have to write elaborate grant narratives that we spent a fun conversation discussing today. And we can't do that on an ongoing basis. We need to have the entire application pulled together and submitted at once in order to secure the funds. And so you just imagine where, our partners need to know that we can pay them in order to save the seats. In order to do that, we need to apply. In order to do that, we have to have a full grant in, and we have to have the full scope of the program. So lots more to say about that, but no, I don't think that we can go beyond what we have here. And, I think just full transparency, where we started, this is our point in time progress update for you all. So this is what we're aspiring to accomplish. But, we're still needing to secure the students that they can come, deal with the shortages we have with staffing that remain, et cetera, in order to fully kind of pull off the numbers that we talked about for today. But we very much believe and are excited about this is this sort of incubation year. And I would definitely imagine, kind of scaling and kind of bolder innovation next summer based on what we learned. And this goes way back to the question I think Ms. Chung asked about, or somebody had asked about, are there going to be students that aren't served, but that want to, we'll have data after the summer to even know how much bigger would it need to be based on the need in our community. So I don't know, Javier, if you want to say anything else about that. But
no, I'd just say boom.
Thank you. I really appreciate all of that. And again, I apologized in advance for the question, but I did want to know what the answer was. So thank you. Mr. Youssef, do you still have your hand up with another question, or is that just a remnant from before?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, Mr. Superintendent, I think that's all the questions that the board has.
to just again, just extend my thanks to Malia and the team, to Ben and Barb and Lori, our amazing school leaders, for being here representing the work that all of our school leaders are doing. And again, this is a ton of really, really exciting work that is, capturing the equity focus that we've wanted to have around summer in a way that, it was just a dream, and now we're actually living it. And so super, super excited to see, what happens as a result of this and what we learn and where we take it next. So thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, everyone. Now we're moving on to new business, and we'll start with first read of discipline policy revisions. And we are going to hold a workshop on this after the close of our business meeting. Next is first read on revisions to the school year 2021-2022 school calendar and proposed school start and end times. And again, we'll hold a workshop on this as well after the adjournment of our business meeting. Next is consideration and action to approve the contract with Blaine Casey for Longfellow. Is there a motion? Ms. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Youssef. Mr. Superintendent, will you speak to this motion, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. In 2017, as you know, Portland voters approved a $64 million referendum to renovate Lyseth, Brezomscott, Reiki, and Longfellow elementary schools as part of the district's Building for a Future effort. In 2019, staff, in consultation with community members on the District Advisory Building Committee, selected Harriman as the architect and engineer for the Longfellow, Brezomscott, and Reiki school renovation project. So what we call the 3-school project. Harriman, working with staff, community members, and members of both the District Advisory Building Committee and each of the individual building level advisory committees, developed detailed plans for all of the schools, including the Longfellow Elementary School project. This proposal was vetted and developed with guidance from 3 community forums, multiple meetings with school and district staff and stakeholders, as well as, I mentioned, members of the DABC and the BLAC. At the February 18th DABC meeting, the design for the Longfellow Elementary School was reviewed in anticipation of the board approval process. The board reviewed this plan during the first read-in workshop on February 23rd and voted to approve the plan on March 2nd. Board approval to move forward with this plan allowed Harriman and staff to draw up contractor specifications and solicit bids for what is an anticipated summer 2021 construction start. As you know, the project represents a scaled-back interpretation of the conceptual documents that were developed during the early BFOF design phase. The scaling back allowed the project to retain many of the key features in the original design while maintaining the financial viability of all of the BFOF school projects that were approved by the Portland voters. So among the features, the plans adhere to the spirit of the renovations developed in consultation with multiple stakeholders that became known as the Scenario 1 classrooms scenario. And this was presented to the board in March of 2020. This scheme emphasizes improvements to the primary learning spaces, including classrooms and specialist rooms. A significant amount of the work at Longfellow also addresses removal of asbestos-containing materials, primarily in flooring and ceilings. And subsequent to the board workshop, the architects developed a design for the Longfellow School that included an addition with a new pre-K classroom, specialist instruction rooms, and a cafeteria and a warming kitchen. However, As you know, during the more recent cost estimates, we determined that the cost of the cafeteria and kitchen exceeded the construction budget that was allocated for Longfellow school renovations. For this reason, those items, that particular item, or those two items, were priced by contractors as an alternate cost to the base bid. As you know, all four of the BFO elementary schools projects are designed to meet leadership in energy and environmental design LEED Silver guidelines. The three school construction projects, which includes Longfellow, which is what we're talking about today, are solicited contractor bids individually from a list of pre-qualified general contractors with demonstrated experience and capacity to perform the work. The pre-qualified contractors are being allowed to bid on any or all of the school renovations, and the solicitation of bids is carried out sequentially to allow contractors the opportunity to bid on successive projects. Longfellow, as you know, is the first of those three, and it will be followed by Reiki, which, as I mentioned earlier, is currently out for bid, and then Presumpscott. So the bid opening for Longfellow Elementary School project was on April 22nd, and it yielded bids from three pre-qualified contractors. The city purchasing department reported the final base bids as follows. Hardy Pond Construction bid for $13,550,000. Blaine Casey Building Construction bid $10,995,784, and Great Falls Construction bid $11,153,375. So the low bidder was Blaine Casey Building Construction with the bid amount just under $11 million. The construction budget that was established for Longfellow was $10.5 million. The project budget also contained a 10% contingency, so roughly just over $1 million, half of which is allocated for bid contingency, so being able to apply it towards the actual bid, and the other half for construction contingency, for a total construction bidding budget of just over $11 million. The low bid has arrived, as you know, under budget, just barely, with just about $30,000 remaining, and therefore no value engineering is necessary in order to move forward with this project within budget. So the bids also contained a list of the alternates that had been previously reviewed with the school board and with all of the advisory groups. And due to the budgetary constraints, we unfortunately do not anticipate being able to include any of those alternates at this time, and that includes the cafeteria and warming kitchen that was one of those alternates. So tonight, what we're asking you to do is to approve the Blaine Casey building construction contract in the amount of $10,995,784 for the construction of Longfellow Elementary School.
Thank you so much, Mr. Superintendent. Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing no questions from the board, I'm going to move to public comment. Is there any public comment on the motion? This is to approve the contract with Blaine Casey for renovating the Longfellow School. Seeing no public comment, I'm going to move to board discussion. Is there any board discussion? Okay. By roll call vote, please indicate whether you are in favor of consideration of action to approve the contract with Blaine Casey for the renovation of Longfellow School. Mr. Superintendent, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Bondo?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Irish?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Russell Better?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson? Did we lose Ms. Thompson? Looks like we did. Mr. Youssef?
Yes.
Ms. Allen? Thought I saw Haley here. Ms. Boxer-McCumber?
Yes.
Ms. Chung?
Yes.
Ms. Yangala?
Yes.
And Chair Figdor?
Yes. The motion passes unanimously with the students voting with the majority.
Thank you. So with us tonight are Mr. Blaine and Galen Casey, owners of the contracting firm, and folks that you will be getting to know well over the next 3 years. Mr. Casey, thank you for joining us tonight, and congratulations on winning this bid. We greatly appreciate your desire to take on what will be a challenging but hopefully very rewarding project. I don't know how much you know about the Longfellow community. You will learn soon that they very much love that school and are also very much looking forward to working with you to make it an amazing 21st century learning space. So thank you again for being here. I don't know if you want to say anything, or if Steve, Doug, or our Harriman team, if you all have anything that you want to add, but we're super excited to take this next step. So Mr. Casey.
I want to thank you very much. And we look forward to it. We've got a pretty good team put together here with us tonight, Galen and Mason LaSalle, who's our project manager, and we're excited about it. Thank you.
Awesome. Steve, team, anything?
I can add that, yes, it is very exciting, and our Longfellow community is going to be fully engaged, as will be our Reiki community and our Presumpscot school community. I look at it in nautical terms here. It's another knot in the rope as we climb to get on deck of the completion of the BFOF. So that's in our future. It's never easy. Can't say it's always fun, but I'll tell you it's rewarding. And thank you to Doug, of course, Lisa, Emily, Mark, Lee, who's not here this evening. And it's going to be a transformative work for the Longfellow schools. So I'm excited, and thank you.
Lisa, did you want to say something as well? I think I saw your hand up.
I was just going to add that we're really excited to welcome you to the team, Blaine, and we're excited to get school number 2 on our way. This is 2 of 4, so we're working our way through the BFOF, and it's really, really exciting. You've got a lot of really dedicated people on this call as well as in all the communities, so welcome.
And we hope you'll consider bidding for the other 2 schools as well. Just going to pitch.
Okay.
I'm at it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Casey, and the whole team that is involved in these projects, our operations staff, and the whole Harriman team. Thank you so much. This is a huge milestone. Okay, we are now moving to personnel issues. Consideration and action to approve the personnel items listed, re-election of probationary teachers. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Was that Mr. Burke? Mr. Burke, thank you so much. Is there a second?
Again.
Ms. Bondo, thank you. Ms. Stoddard, do you want to speak to this motion?
Yes, I would be happy to. Thank you. So this evening, as we do every year at this time, we're bringing forward for your approval 2 groups of probationary educators that the superintendent is nominating for renewal with Portland Public Schools. This action is required by Maine statute, Title 20A, Chapter 503, Section 13201, which states that the superintendent shall nominate and the board shall approve all teacher nominations for employment. Under that same statute, the superintendent is required to notify all probationary teachers of his intention to nominate or not nominate them for an additional teaching contract by May 15th. So each year we bring forward 2 groups of teachers for your approval, those that are nominated for another probationary year of teaching, and those who have completed the 3-year probationary period and are now being nominated for a continuing contract. The first group that you're going to be asked to approve is a list of 124 teachers who have been employed for less than 3 years with the district. The superintendent is nominating each member of this group for an additional probationary year of teaching in the district. I also want to note that the probationary period in the Maine statute was changed from 3 years to 2 years for any educator who was hired for this school year and beyond. So this group of 124 educators includes teachers who will enter year 2 and year 3 for probation next year. And then next year at this time, we'll complete the transition to a 2-year probationary period for all teachers by bringing forward a group composed of those completing their year 2 and year 3 to move to continuing contract. So I'll turn it back over to Chair Figdor for any questions or discussions prior to the roll call for a vote of the first group of probationary teachers.
Thank you so much, Ms. Stoddard, and thank you for your full explanation. It's always helpful. Are there any board questions on the motion? Okay, there is not public comment on personnel issues, so we'll just move into board discussion. Is there any board discussion? Seeing none, by roll call vote, please indicate whether you are in favor of approving the personnel item, re-election of probationary teachers. Mr. Superintendent, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Bondo?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Irish?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Russell Better?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Youssef?
Yes.
Ms. Boxer McCumber?
Yes.
Ms. Chung?
Yes.
Ms. Yangala?
Yes.
And Chair Figdor?
Yes. The motion passes unanimously with the students voting with the majority. And now we're...
Can I just quickly, when I took roll for Longfellow, I did not hear Board Member Thompson vote. I thought that she was lost, but I see that she's back. So would you like to be on the record, Ms. Thompson?
Yes, please. Thank you.
And voting in the affirmative, I assume?
I have an unstable connection.
Okay, excellent. So now we're on to our next personnel item, consideration and action to approve the personnel item listed, election of first continuing contract teachers. Is there a motion? Ms. Thompson, seconded by
Second.
Mr. Rodriguez. Ms. Stoddard, did you have anything else you wanted to add to your explanation on this part of the motion? Or this second?
The second group is comprised of 42 educators. They've completed their 3-year probationary period with the schools. Superintendent is nominating each member of this group for continuing contract, and we seek your approval.
Thank you so much. Are there board questions on the motion? Okay, seeing no questions, there's no public comment on personnel items. So we'll move into board discussion. Is there any board discussion? Seeing none, by roll call vote, please indicate whether you are in favor of approving the personnel item, election of first continuing contract teachers. Mr. Superintendent, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Bondo?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Irish?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Russell Better?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Youssef?
Yes.
Ms. Boxer McCumber?
Yes.
Ms. Chung?
Yes.
Ms. Yangala?
Yes.
And Chair Figdor?
Yes. The motion passes unanimously with the students voting with the majority. Now we're on to our final personnel item for the evening, consideration and action to approve the personnel item listed, election of administrator candidates. Is there a motion? Mr. Rodriguez, seconded by Ms. Thompson. Ms. Stoddard, will you please speak to this motion?
Actually, I'm going to speak to this one.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
Yep. Tonight, I'm pleased to recommend Jake Giesman as assistant principal for Deering High School. Jake emerged as the top candidate from among an impressive field of internal and external candidates. Although Jake hardly needs an introduction for most of you, I would like to note that he has been interim principal of the PPS Remote Academy since January of this year, moving from his position as assistant principal at Lyman Moore Middle School. He joined Moore as assistant principal in 2015, and his previous experience includes being director of a gifted and talented program and coordinator of summer school programs at the Columbia, Missouri School District. He was also head of school at the Academy Hill School in Springfield, Mass., and a teacher in Connecticut. In addition to his doctorate, which Jake received from Johns Hopkins University recently, he holds a specialist degree in educational leadership from the University of Missouri, a master's degree in environmental studies from the University of Montana, and a bachelor's degree in philosophy from Harvard University. In addition to these formal roles, Jake is a leader among leaders. He serves as the assistant principal representative on the Portland Administrators Association Leadership Group and has been working closely with Assistant Superintendent Townsend and the Policy Committee on the rewrite of the district's discipline policies that we just had on first read, and he will be co-leading the workshop in a little while on those policies. So with that, I am proud to recommend Dr. Giesman to be the assistant principal at Deering High School.
Thank you so much, Mr. Superintendent. Are there questions on the motion? There's no public comment on personnel items, so is there any board discussion? Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. I wanted to, in a moment, of course, I'll very enthusiastically vote in favor of this recommendation. I am a Lyman Moore parent, and so I've had the great pleasure of experiencing the amazing community at that school. And I know that Jake has had a great impact in that community, and what I've experienced in great part is because of his contributions. As everyone on this board knows, our review of discipline policy is something that is incredibly important to me, and what I believe is some of the most critical work that this district has taken on, at least in the time that I've been on the board. And Jake has spearheaded this work. So I've been incredibly impressed with him. On top of that, he also led in Lyman Moore the PBIS work groups and set the foundation for that. I'm currently part of the PBIS work group at Lyman Moore. I was invited to participate in that. I've been joining their meetings over the last few weeks, and although Jake has not been there because he's already at a different role, what is clear, and there are several staff members that are part of these groups, what is clear is that in that school community, there is this, again, this enthusiasm and this desire to serve our students at the most, in the most sincere way possible. And again, I see Jake's mark being left behind in that school as a great testament to what he's now going to achieve and continue to grow at Deering High School. I could go on all night to sing his praises. I'm excited for Deering High School and all that we can then provide for future growth for a great professional in this district. So I'll leave it now for us to take a vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rodriguez. Is there any other board discussion? Ms. Bondo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to express my sentiments by the amazing opportunity that Endearing High School has now to have that balance on the leadership to move some equity work, and especially around discipline, because when I look at the introduction, the background, then Dr. Jake has on the leadership and policy analysis is something I feel like is well needed right now to try to move some of the work, and especially during is the most diverse high school than we have in our city. So that mean, and I think so I'm really expecting to see how it's going to move some of those policies and assessment and analysis around discipline and different area than we need to improve in during high school. So I look for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bondo. Ms. Chung.
Even though I already said something in my board report, I just wanted to say welcome again to Dr. Giesman to Deering. And I think that this is especially important with, like Ms. Bondo just said about his previous experience with policy work about Deering's. We have a certain, I feel like, to address a certain stigma about our school and the community. So I'm glad to see someone coming in who will hopefully support our environment and be able to cultivate this type of school and atmosphere that we want for our students. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chung. Okay, seeing no other hands up, I think we can move into a vote. By roll call vote, please indicate whether you are in favor of approving the personnel item, election of administrator candidate. Mr. Superintendent, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Bondo?
Yes, for me.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Irish?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Russell Better?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Youssef?
Yes.
Ms. Boxer McCumber?
Yes.
Ms. Chung?
Yes.
Ms. Yangala?
Yes.
And Chair Figdor.
Yes. The motion passes unanimously with the students voting in with the majority. Congratulations, Jake.
Dr. Giesman, would you like to say anything?
Oh, I'm conscious that we have a lot of work left to do this evening, so I'll just say that I love this community and the work is dear to me, and I appreciate the opportunity to do this very important work with you.
Awesome. I would just thank you, Jake, for stepping up to this leadership role, and very much look forward to continuing to work with you in this role. I also want to thank the co-principals, Dr. Ahmed and Ms. Stain, for leading the assistant principal selection process. As I mentioned earlier, they had some really strong candidates to choose from and did an amazing job of setting up a comprehensive and thoughtful process that yielded the best person for the Deering community. So thank you to them. Next, we will be setting up a process to replace Dr. Giesman at Moore, and we look forward to making that public announcement in the very near term. I also want to recognize Assistant Superintendent Townsend for his leadership in our administrator selection process, along with our HR Director, Barb Stoddard, and thank both of them for the work that they're doing for this process at DHS and the upcoming process at Moore. And finally, I would like to thank Jim Moses from the bottom of my heart. We will do something bigger for Jim before the end of the school year, but I don't think we can ever thank him enough for stepping in from retirement, not for one, but for 2 years to help us through a huge transition period at Deering. Jim is one of the most competent, thoughtful, and committed administrators I've ever had the pleasure of working with. And while I know he's probably looking forward to some time off, I know that he will be helping us in different ways for a long, long time to come. So just want to thank Jim as well. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Superintendent. So we have reached the end of our agenda for the business meeting. We're going to adjourn in a moment, but before that, I want to remind you we have 2 workshops after we adjourn. The first workshop is on our discipline policy revisions, and the second workshop is on the revised calendar and start and end times. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
I believe that was Mr. Rodriguez, seconded by Mr. Burke.
That's right.
All those in favor? We are adjourned at 8:40 p.m.